This topic is hip flexor tightness.
This is a good one. Everybody needs it.
Well,
right?
There's a phenomena called hypokinetics, which is decreased activity. You sit all the time.
Yes.
All right. So what happens when you sit? I mean, not only does it, hurt
so many things.
Well, your cardiovascular system. You know, they say sitting's the new smoking.
Right.
Yeah,
all of it.
That's yesterday's news. But
what's today's news?
Today's news is there's something you can do about it. Hypokinetics. So decreased activity. And seriously, when you sit, all right, people that walk around like this look like they're still sitting. And so what we want to do is help you be able to stand taller. Now, what you have to understand is that iliopsoas muscle, or your hip flexor,
that's a big word.
I know.
Say that again.
And the reason it's a big word is because it's actually two huge muscles. And here's a picture of it. What you have to see is that it goes from your back. It attaches on your back.
That's crazy.
Wait. Goes into your pelvis and then attaches on your hip.
Oh my
All right.
goodness.
It is huge. So it's two muscles, the iliacus and the psoas.
Okay.
So it's deep, way in here,
powerful,
and very powerful.
Yeah.
So it needs attention, and it needs to be checked, and it needs to be stretched. The things that are going to also affect it are sitting. And so you shouldn't sit for longer than 20 or 30 minutes.
So when you sit, it's short. Is that right?
It depends. Okay.
And
we need to stretch it.
I gotcha.
So 20, 30 minutes. Set your watch. Set your. I don't care what
phone,
you do.
Get up every
Have
20,
a friend
30
call
minutes.
you every 20 to 30 minutes.
Then you never get anything done.
True. All right, but 20 to 30 minutes, get up, move around. And then if you are tight, you're going to need to do the stretches. So here's the test. Dana's going to show you the test to see if you have tight hip flexors. So show them, Dana.
All right, so you can do this on the end of your bed or off the side of a sofa. It's not quite as effective, but if your bed's not high enough. All you're going to do is sit your bum right on the end, and you're going to roll back onto your back and hug both knees up to your chest. Now hold one leg there and let the other one drop down with your knee bent, right?
Yep.
Okay, and if it goes the whole way, I can't tell what mine's doing right now.
And I feel that?
Definitely feel a stretch.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, but some of you will be like this.
So you
or you're going to have this as well, which means the longer muscles also tighten.
Or you might see your leg kind of drop to the side, and that's another area of tightness. A critical thing, though, is making sure your low back stays flat to the table, which is why this knee's hugged up here.
And let's say your knee's tight, you can always grab under here.
That's a good way of doing it. Okay, so that's the test. And you want to be neutral, right? You want your leg to be parallel to the ground.
Yeah, and you look like you're neutral. Okay. But you can feel it, right?
I can feel it.
So it's not a bad stretch for her to do because she can feel it. I mean, she's not tight now, but she could be.
Right, but I do stretch this because I know the importance of it. All right.
So now what do you do?
Okay, so there's definitely several ways to stretch it. One is actually getting into that test position. Now, it can be a little bit awkward to do it at the end of your bed all the time. So I even have people just come off the side of their bed, kind of angle off to the side and hug the opposite knee up to your chest and just let your leg go down. And if you need a little bit more, or you notice you're one of those people where your leg's a little straighter, you can take a belt or you can reach your leg and even pull back to get a more intense stretch.
And try to look as much like a pretzel as possible.
Yeah, exactly. So a belt works nicely here, and you can pull back and get a little more length through the longer muscles in the front of your leg. So that probably is my favorite way of stretching it.
That's a great way.
Not always the most convenient, so there's some other options. One is just a standing stretch, and you can do this during the workday. Like if you get up every 20 or 30 minutes, just get into a staggered stance position, square your hips forward, let your back knee bend slightly, and then tilt your pelvis forward like a dog tucking its tail underneath. And that tilts your pelvis backwards a little, keep upright in your back, and you'll feel the stretch right in the front of your hip. And to intensify, you can always raise that arm up in the air, but you don't even need to do that. Often you'll get a little bit of a stretch. And that's a good one to do during the workday. You can do that right at your desk. And if you don't want to get up, you can even do it in sitting.
So no excuse.
No excuse not to stretch your hip flexors. So here, slide off the side of your chair, and same thing, just take that leg behind you. Now make sure your back's not arching or moving, so you don't want your back to be stretched. You want your back to be neutral, so the stretch is in the front of the hip. And then for those advanced people or after a workout, if you're out for a hard walk or something, if you want to get down on the ground into like a tall kneel stagger position, holding on to something, same thing. From here, you can tilt that pelvis forward and slightly press your hips forward until you feel a stretch. Now you don't want to just lunge forward and kind of be sloppy about it. I see that too, and that's, you're moving your back in funny ways. You need to be a little bit careful. So still in your back, you want to be nice and stable, and then just press your hip gently forward until you get the stretch. Now, I usually recommend a full 30 seconds, 3 repetitions, because it is a tight muscle, a big muscle. So I think to get a good stretch, you need to hold it longer. What do you think?
Yeah, I would start with that. And if you find you aren't getting a good stretch, there's studies that say older people, like when you get into your 70s, you need to hold for a full minute.
Okay.
All right. So 4 times for a full minute. Okay. So again, start with the 30 seconds 3 times, and if you're getting a stretch, stay with that. Who wants to hold a stretch for a minute? Yeah. And if not, then go for a minute.
I believe that though, because the tissue is so taut, you might need that that length of time to get a stretch.
Yeah.
Really good. I love it.
Thank you.
All right. So those are your exercises for aging well.